Hey there, patrons. How you doing? It's your boy, Jonathan Macri, with you for another bonus episode of the Knicks Film School Podcast. I'll get right to our surprise for this week. I'm not talking to Andrew Claudio, although he is on our Zoom right now doing whatever Andrew Claudio does when he's not talking.
Working, John.
So?
Yes,
working?
I'm working. I'm editing the pod you just recorded, so you can do this other one, and I'll edit that one too. Shout out to the dream job. Yes,
allegedly. No, we're. I love needling Andrew.
He's out of here. He's gone.
All right. The special guest, my partner this week, Ben Ridholtz. Hello, Ben. How are you?
Hey there, John. I'm good. Good to see you again.
It's great to see you too. When is the last time I saw you?
Literally last week, wasn't it? The 5th pick draft, whenever that was.
Yes, which Andrew, I wish he still had his camera on, which he tried to unduly influence on. Here's how shameless Andrew Claudio is. No, I want you to turn on your mic for this. He knew he had done such a poor job at drafting in the 5th pick draft.
That's a lie.
That he was trying to peddle you to voters so I wouldn't win.
That's a gracious candidate, just like sacrificing for the party. I think that's fine.
I'm Bernie endorsing Biden.
I would have taken Andrew as my VP in a second.
Exactly.
Also, talk about shameless, Macri.
What?
You draft for clicks.
Listen, Vince Carter and Ray Allen and whoever the hell else I took are very good NBA players.
Bunch of Twitter jerks.
That's what we're doing. Picks for clicks.
Our followers. Yeah, picks for clicks. Our followers, our loyal followers of Knicks Film School, who most of them were probably born in 2000, never even heard of half the guys I drafted. Meanwhile, you're going with Jason Richardson because he did a through the legs dunk one time. Shameless.
That's a former 20-point per game scorer to you. Jason Richardson. I'll tell you what. Thank you for indulging me there, Andrew. You can go back.
I will just say my endorsement of Benji was solely, and I said this on the pod, for his performance on the podcast.
Okay,
you're outstanding on
whatever, thanks, brother.
Whatever gets you to sleep at night.
We'll collude and get you over the top. We'll get you enough votes in the Iowa primary. Don't worry.
Well, maybe that time will be now. So Benji and I are going to do something that when Andrew proposed this, I was already excited about. And I love doing these pods with Andrew, as everybody knows. But I'm especially excited to do this one with Mr. Ridholtz because, as we've come to learn recently, talk about a student of history and someone who has fun being a student of history.
Yes.
We are going to each draft. We're going to do 10. It's a 10 pick draft. We're each going to have 5 picks. The 10 best teams. So we're going to do 5 each, never to win an NBA championship. That is the premise. Ben, you asked Andrew some clarifying questions. Do you want to say what those are? Because I'm sure some of our listeners may have the same.
Yeah. Questions. And now I want to make sure that I have it right because of the way you just described it. So let's hope so. So it's individual seasons.
Yes.
Right? Okay. Yes.
So for instance, the for just throwing a team out there, the 93, 94 or 94, 95 Chicago Bulls could be taken because in those seasons, the Bulls did not win why is it? Okay. Andrew's going to look at me confused. Those seasons, the Bulls did not win, a title or like whatever the 2 seasons in the 13-year run that the Celtics didn't win a championship. Like those seasons are eligible just because the predecessor or the one who, followed it won. They're still fair game.
As a Knicks podcast, literally the 92, 93 Knicks, that separate team is eligible. The team the next year that went to the finals and lost is eligible. Then the next year, the finger roll. I'm getting slowly depressed as I read this. The 9 men, 1 mission season, the 8th seed that made the finals. These are all separate candidates. So hypothetically, you could have multiple entries from the same franchise during the same run, if you'd like to. Like Benji, the one you asked, that I'm sure one of them will come up today, if not both of them, are the 2 Jazz teams in 97 and the 98. Those are separate entries. So if you want to put a lot of Utah Jazz in our lives the last month and a half. If you'd like to add more to the list and put 2 Jazz failed championship runs, they are 2 separate entries.
Yes, which dovetails into the other clarification. You do need to be specific to a year. So you can't just say, well, I don't want to say anything. You can't, let me give an example that's not gonna get taken. You can't say like the McGrady Magic teams. You have to be specific. Such great teams those were. I think that's it. Any other things we should clarify?
No, although I have 0 Knicks teams. You do? Okay, good. So we'll get there.
Listen, I took this very seriously, so I will save my take about whether any Knicks team should be on this list for the end.
Okay.
Who knows? Maybe one will get picked. How are we determining the draft order, Andrew?
I thought I could just do work while
this is the last thing. This is the last thing. Oh, wait.
I forgot.
And actually, hold on. And actually, I'll ask you, is it, I forget, we always have this conversation. Is it snake or is it?
Pick 'em. It's back and forth.
Back and forth. Okay.
Yeah. Like you're choosing 5 teams on the court.
Wonderful.
Okay. Like then LA Fitness, 24-hour fitness on the playground, whichever. We'll go back to the same high tech operation we use for every draft to decide the order. And it's high card draw. And we do a quick shuffle. So that way you can all know that I'm not cheating, or at least trust that I'm not cheating. Trust that I'm not cheating. Those are words.
Again,
Tails. You know what? That'd probably be easy. Happy football day, by the way. Football starting literally as we speak, as we do this draft.
I think I have Cooper Cup going right now.
Same. Shout out PPR League. All right. Benji, you are the guest. You'll get to go first. Your card is a 7.
Okay.
All right.
I'll take it.
Literally, it's half, about a 50-50 chance of getting the first pick.
I kind of want to see what John picks first.
John, your card is a 3. So Benji, you get to go first in our best to never win it draft.
Shiest. Okay, that's a lot of pressure because I thought about this a lot because I think there's one answer that most people would say.
Oh no, you're gonna take my fucking team. God damn you. All right.
I don't know. Okay.
You're gonna take my team. It's just do your speech.
I'm gonna go with the 2018-19 Golden State Warriors.
Wow. Okay, you didn't take my team.
So
talk to me.
I think the most obvious Warriors team is, of course, the one that had the best record ever.
Yes.
To me, and the great thing about this exercise is it makes you think about not just like there's obviously statistical arguments, which I looked at carefully in terms of win-loss record, net rating, offensive, defensive ratings, playoff record, all that. But then you also have to take into consideration injuries because
yes,
there are teams that would have had amazing records that maybe didn't have as great records because guys were hurt for much of the year. There are teams that were favorites to win NBA Finals, clear favorites to win NBA Finals that didn't win because of injuries.
Yeah.
And so there's a lot. And then the last kind of factor that I found really interesting to think about was level of competition in different eras. And, I think there are teams that, and this era is going to come up a lot. I think the 90s teams, a few of them that made the finals or had amazing records. I think if you look at the talent on those teams top to bottom, I don't think they quite measure up roster wise to other eras in the NBA, including the 80s, including the 60s, early 70s, and including more recent history. I think the 90s was a little more diluted, just post expansion. And so that factored in also to kind of where I went and kind of factored against some of the statistical arguments that you might have about some of those teams. Anyway,
so you favored more modern teams.
Not necessarily I favored more modern teams versus 90s teams.
Okay.
In some instances.
Okay.
I looked at the rosters. Well, I didn't just look at the profile. Anyway, that all leads me to why my first pick is the 2018-19 Golden State Warriors. I don't think there was a team that was more likely to win the finals that didn't than that team. Because the Durant Warriors were infallible. They were undefeated. They cruised. The record that year was only 57-25. I think we all recognize that that team was better than 57-25. They were not trying incredibly hard during regular season. They were first in offensive rating by a gazillion. They were only 13th in defensive rating. And I think that reflects more than their actual defensive acumen. I think it just reflects an indifference, which is, I think, the main reason why they only won 57 games. They basically flew through the playoffs. Obviously, Durant with the Achilles. They're in the finals against Toronto. They win 2 games in the finals against a really, really good Toronto team without Durant and without Klay Thompson. Like, they were 2 wins away from winning the finals without 2 of their best players. That's very rare. And like, I just think that the talent on that roster is some of the best talent we've ever seen in the league. And you saw it the prior year and you saw it 2 years before, and the 2 years before that. I don't think you look at the rosters, even of the top record teams that didn't win. I think this team is better than those teams. And that's why, after thinking about it for a long time, that's my first pick, is the 2018-19 Golden State Warriors.
So I think objectively, it's the right pick in this specific sense. If your question is, what single season has been derailed the most by an injury that, had the injury not occurred, the season would have turned out differently? I'm not, because you're talking about a top, let's be conservative. Let's say a top 12 player all time in his prime. How many other top 12 players in their prime have gotten injured in a season in which they were on a team that was this good? And
favored to win to that extent.
To win to that extent. Yeah. And we could go, obviously we go through the fact they obviously had 3 other Hall of Famers on the team. And so from that perspective, yes, and look, this is going to be for the voters to decide. I wonder, is the spirit of the exercise, because when you say like the greatest teams not to win it, there was obviously evinced by the fact that the Durant smoke, noise, whatever you want to call it, was hovering over that team for the entire year. Like, was that a great? It was. The talent was obviously there, and if Durant doesn't get hurt, I have to think that they win.
Oh yeah,
but there's that other part of it that kind of hovers over it, which I don't know. I think there's no right or wrong answer. I just think that's something to be considered.
My thought, and I agree, and I also think that, and I tried. I mean, it's all subjective, and we're making up the rules as we go. I didn't discount like season success and performance over the season. I think that's really important. And there are teams that exceed this team by a pretty good margin. The fact that we know what they were, like the fact that they're coming off 2 finals, playing some of the best basketball that we have ever seen.
Yeah.
And we know, like, it would be different if this team came together that year. So like, let's say, for example, the Durant, Kyrie, Harden Nets were a factor here, which, like, in terms of talent, maybe it would be. Yeah. But I don't have them on this list because I don't know what it looks like in the playoffs. I have no idea. But like Golden State, I know what that looks like. I saw that dominance, right? And like, although Houston did give them a ride, and Houston's an interesting part of this exercise, perhaps, that Houston Harden CP teams. But I think the fact that I know what they were and the overwhelming talent kind of got me there. But the counters are fair. Are fair.
Benji, can I ask a quick question?
Yeah.
If Klay doesn't get hurt in Game 6, do the Warriors come back and win the series?
Yes.
Okay. That adds to your point if you believe that, which I might actually be a subscriber to that. Warriors were winning. They were in their building.
Watching that game once Klay went down and like the performance that the Warriors put on, it was one of I was inspired by that. I thought that was like just to see like Steph and Draymond just go back to the classic pick and roll drawing board and almost winning that game was really special. And yeah, I do think so. I don't know, but I think so.
Okay.
I'm going to start with my answer by just going through real quick the teams. So if you have the top, if you go, and there's a helpful Wikipedia page, just full disclosure, that does this. You look at all the teams in NBA history that have won at least 75.6% of their games. So for a full 82 game season, we're talking about teams that have won at least 62 games. There are 50 some odd, I think, or around 60, something about that. If you go through those and you rank those teams by point differential, average point differential. Fun fact, the top two teams on that list that did not win a championship are both the Milwaukee Bucks. So I'm going to go through the list here. The best team by winning percentage, the 1971-72 Los Angeles Lakers, thought by some to be the greatest team of all time, 69-13, Will Chamberlain, the whole thing. Number two on that list, the 1970-71 Milwaukee Bucks, because they did win it. After that, the 95-96 Bulls. After that, the 2019-20 Bucks. They did not win it.
That's a weird one, man.
That is a weird one.
They popped up a lot, and I could not get there.
They lost the East semis to the Heat in the bubble. I don't know how to reconcile that.
Yeah.
After that, we have another team that won it all, the 2016-17 Warriors, 67 wins, the first KD team. And then the team after that, outscored teams by 11.2 points, is the team that I am taking first overall, and that's the 1971-72 Milwaukee Bucks.
Great pick.
Thank you.
I had them four. I had them four on my list.
Okay. That's I look, there's a lot of wiggle room here.
Oh, yeah.
So there's a few things that I like about this, and I think it would be disingenuous to start anywhere. There's two places to start. One, the team that they lost to in the playoffs is the team, again, that I just mentioned, the 71-72 Lakers, that has the best point differential of all time.
Yep.
So that seems notable. I'm going to talk about those West Finals again in a minute. The other place I think you have to go to is the Kareem Abdul-Jabbar season that he had. So I know you appreciate this. So Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, to say that he won MVP in this season is not enough because he won 6 of them. You could argue that this is the greatest season ever had by any NBA player ever. By win shares, it is. By win shares for 48 minutes, it is. I mean, Kareem was he was just on another level in this season.
It was his highest scoring season as well.
His highest scoring season. I mean, the numbers from that year kind of they seem fake.
Yes.
But I'll read them off real quick. So he played in all 81 games. He averaged 44 minutes a game. She's shots 57.4% from the field, averaged 34.8 points, obviously led the league in scoring, 16.5 rebounds, 4.6 assists.
Great assist numbers too. Yeah.
Incredible. I mean, it's peak Kareem. Maybe, he's kind of gotten now like pegged as like the third greatest player of all time. You're not many people beating his resume. So that's the Kareem part of it. And then, there's some other little specifics of it, like the Lakers, the champion Lakers, had a 33-game winning streak that year, ended by this Bucks team. This Bucks team got off to a 17-1 start. They had 3 Hall of Famers on the team. One of which was Oscar Robertson, who did he run out of gas? He was getting a little old there, a little long in the tooth. Yeah, he ran out of gas in the West Finals. Like it looked up, he only averaged 9 points, 5 rebounds, 5 assists. And for the year, he was 17, 8, and 5, which was not like prime Oscar numbers, but it was,
still got it.
Still got it. Yeah. The thing that really got me was this West Finals, again, with arguably the greatest team of all time, was 2-2 after 4 games. The Lakers won those games by 1 and 3 points, respectively. The Bucks won their 2 games by 21 and 26 points.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
And then in the game 6 loss, but the Bucks got kind of beaten badly in game 5. Game 6, which LA clinched the series, they won by 4. Kareem had 37, 25, and 8 in that game 6 in a loss. I think it's one of those teams that they had everything, and I think it's the classic, like, they just ran into a better team, and they picked the wrong year to be that great, and that's it.
This goes to my continuous score idea. If you go like, can you imagine how cool that would be?
It was a great idea you had.
But that is amazing. Can you imagine that series? You have Wilt against Kareem, like prime Kareem. Wilt's already on the downside, but he's still great. And you have Wilt against Kareem. I mean, that's, depending on your ranking, could say 2 of the top 3. You could say 2 of the top 5. You probably can't go more than 2 of the top 6 or 7. If you really don't like, if you're really a Wilt hater, then you can maybe drop him lower to 6 or 7, but you can't go lower than that.
Yeah. And we should also say, like, the team the year before, I mentioned it, but just to, like, they did win the championship.
Correct.
And it was not a competitive playoffs. They went 4-1, 4-1, and then 4-0 in the finals against the Bullets.
I do want to shout out Bobby Dandridge too, who was an amazing player and was their second best player by this point. And it's an unassailable pick.
Can I add one more piece of trivia?
Yeah,
please.
My favorite piece of trivia from Kareem that season. You know how many times he scored less than 20 points in a game?
No, I don't.
Once.
That's fantastic.
Exactly one time.
That's wild. Yeah. You don't get often like these finals where you have a positional matchup kind of in a classic sense like that.
This was a West Finals too.
And this is a West Finals. Yeah. Amazing.
Wild.
Great pick.
Thank you.
This is kind of boring, but I'm going to take another recent Warriors team in that case. I'm going to take the 15-16 Warriors, the best regular season team of all time. At least when measured by record. Their net rating was quite good as well. They were first in offense and 5th in defense. They changed basketball. They became, probably since maybe the Heatles too, but they became a show in a way that like was pretty unparalleled other than Jordan. Yeah. And maybe the Heatles, but I don't even think it got, like, I think that Golden State era was so crazy and they changed the way the game was played. It was Draymond, I think specifically being at his peak that year, because I do think it went downhill from there for him. Like Steph kept going up. I think Clay was pretty much the same for the next couple of years, but Dre was still a decent shooter. Yeah. That kind of totally plummeted after this. Was his most athletic, and just was a force on both sides of the ball I think that was him at his best. And like, he was such a tremendous two-way player at that point. Look, they went 73-9. There's not much more to say about it.
There isn't much more to say.
And the last thing I'll say is, look, they lost. They were up 3. They were also up 3-1 and lost, which had never happened before. So they were technically the closest to winning an NBA final that didn't win an NBA final, right? And there's something to be said about bringing out the best in one of the best players ever. And despite the fact that they collapsed, they did give us perhaps the greatest LeBron performance. And there are a lot of great LeBron performances, but from a series perspective, from a impact perspective, from like an accomplishment perspective, this was like the crowning jewel for LeBron James. And the Cavs team was a great team. And you could argue they could come up again. In this discussion.
I think they may come up again.
Yeah. So great. They lost to a great team, although it was a bit of a collapse. And you could argue if Draymond doesn't do stupid things, they win and all that. But I think it's a pretty unassailable pick to have the 15-16 Warriors here. I think third is pretty low, but here we are. So I got the 18-19 Warriors and the 15-16 Warriors.
It's tough to argue. Yeah, it's tough to argue. I don't know how you argue with this. It's the obvious probably first pick ahead of both of our top picks in this draft. And yet,
but that's the thing, right? So when I thought about it, I was like, which team was better? The Durant Warriors or the pre-Durant Warriors? Like the reason they went and got Durant is because they felt like it was an upgrade, right? So it's like, that said, by 18-19, not only just Draymond on the downside, but their great role players were on the downside. And that's another thing I should say about this team before we move on. The Livingston, the Iguodala, like those guys were so good in 15-16. And like that bench unit was so dangerous, even when one or two of those big guys were sitting. Yeah. And by 18-19, those guys were not as good. And I think that is relevant. But yeah.
Okay. I was hoping you would leave that one for me, but I guess it was a little bit too much to ask for. Okay.
He did leave that one for you.
He did. He did. Well, and he says he would have had, but I had to go with my heart. I had to go with the team I felt should have been said first. So,
I respect it. Yeah.
I did that. It's interesting to me that you had the Bucks pick that I made as fourth on your list, because I have a funny feeling I'm going to go with a team here that is not in your top three, which is upsetting because it means you're going to get your top three picks. Because I don't think that there is a clear choice here. I'm trying to think of which direction I want to go. And again, I'm going. It's funny. I'm going. It's like I'm switching roles here because I'm going against you. I'm going with my heart for this one. And when Andrew pitched this pod, there was one team that came into my mind first. And I know within the boundaries of this exercise, maybe they shouldn't, but I'm going to do it anyway. I'm going to go with the 2007 Suns, which is, I know, I'm shocking you here.
No, they were in my honorable mentions. They are not in my top 10, but they're in my honorable mentions.
I respect that because point differential, they're not really in the they're not in like top 50 of all time. Record wise, they're not really up there. They're tied for whatever 56th ish because they only went 61 and 21. The reason I have them here, and I'm going to get to the other Sun. I wanted to take a Suns team early, and this is the Suns team I settled on. It was either going to be this or the 04 team. The 04 team was the team that started it all, the one that came out of nowhere, the one Steve Nash obviously won the MVP. That team lost to the Sonics in 5 games in the Western Finals. The team that I'm picking here, the 2006-2007 Suns, they were the team that lost against the Spurs in the Robert Horry hip check series.
Yep.
I think most people believe that had that not occurred, the Suns would be the 2007 NBA champion. I believe that.
The fact that the Spurs won it lends credence to that, right? Like it's not like this, like that might have been the championship there, and it was kind of a strange way to lose.
It was for any of our, I don't know how many younger patrons we have, but for any of our younger patrons, like that was in the days where it was just like the finals every year during that time was kind of like, oh, it's the finals is taking place out West. Like it's a formality. Once like one of those couple of teams, whether it was the Mavs, the Spurs, the Suns, like whoever won that key series, you figure they were going to go on and win the whole thing. I know they don't have the statistical profile, but that felt like their year, and all the guys were still there. Now the conflict that I had was them or the 04 team. The 2004 Suns, the 0304 Suns, right? Or not 0304 Suns. Yeah, better record, better point differential. I said they lost 4-1 to the Spurs. They did not have Joe Johnson for the first. So Joe Johnson was on that team. Joe Johnson was not obviously on the 2006-2017.
Right.
Joe Johnson. They didn't have Joe Johnson for the first 3 games of that Spurs series, and they didn't have Leandro Barbosa effectively for the last 4 because he was like played 1 minute and changed. Now that was before Barbosa was like Barbosa, but he was still like the 7th or 8th man on that team. I thought about taking the 04 team, but I just couldn't do it because it was so. I don't know. It was too fresh. Like the 06-07 team was more established. So
I agree. And the 04 team was so new, and I don't think anybody really had thought that was a team that was going to win. By the time 07, by the time that era rolled around a little bit later, where everyone had matured a little bit, the style had matured a little bit. It felt like they had a real shot. That's the Suns is like if we were doing like a more of an era, like best era teams that didn't win, like we talked about, where it would be like late 90s Jazz or it would be mid 2000s Suns would be like one of the top, I think, choices. Yeah. It's harder to pick a specific year, but I think you got the right year. I agree with you.
Okay. Well, that makes me feel good.
What were they defensively that year? Do you know? What do you have in front of you?
I will look it up right now, but I think they were fine.
That was always the thing though, with them was like, did they have the defense to actually do it? And that year they might have, and I mean, you could argue they should have won. So it's that's a great choice.
I don't know if it's a great choice. I after the first handful, I did struggle with this one. This isn't, I mean, it's a very subjective exercise. Therefore, it's a great choice. I am fascinated to see where you go. Yeah, defensively, the Suns that year ranked barely in the top half of the league. 105.5 defensive rating, which was ranked 15th. They did have the best offense in basketball by 3.2 points per 100 possessions.
It was one of the best offenses ever.
Comparatively speaking, the difference between them and the second place Mavs was the same as effectively the difference between the second place Mavs and the 9th place Warriors.
Wow. Yeah.
So they were lapped,
special.
Yeah, they lapped the field offensively.
And you talk about a team that changed the game. Again, that doesn't necessarily tie into best, but 7 seconds or less Suns were a joy.
I had to do it. They were the first team that came to my mind when I heard about the exercise.
All right. So my third choice then, and I get my first three choices, which makes me very happy.
I knew you would.
And a team, speaking of joy to watch, some of my favorite film to go back and watch is obviously one of the great eras of the NBA's Lakers Celtics 80s ball games.
Wow. I think I have a tab open for the. I'm curious. Okay. Which one
I got the 84-85 Boston Celtics.
Oh, okay.
You have a different Celtics team.
No, I had a different.
Oh, you're going with the Lakers
team in the rivalry, but continue.
I have Lakers elsewhere. We'll see if I get to it, but the 84-85 Celtics. So, taking a step back, and the reason the Lakers will come up in this conversation too is because those two teams simply, and you don't just obviously in terms of record, in terms of success, the 80s Lakers and Celtics were legendary. But again, looking at the rosters, I mean, the talent on these teams is just mind-boggling. How many great players both these teams had.
Yes.
The Lakers more than the Celtics because we're talking about Kareem and Magic already. You're talking to, again, the best 6-7 players ever. But Bird, McHale, Parrish, DJ, Walton for a year. I mean, like, incredible talent. Bird at his peak is one of the best ever. And as a team, just some of the most beautiful connected basketball you'll ever watch. Any era, just glorious basketball. And to all the KFS fans out there, if you haven't gone back on YouTube and watched a 85 Celtics game or watched a Celtics Lakers finals, please do so. It'll make you fall in love with the game. It's incredible.
We should say, by the way, that this team had the best record of basketball in the year that you were taking.
That's right. They were 63 and 19. They were, how about this? Second in offense, fifth in defense. They had the profile. Yeah, talking about prime Larry Bird, as I said, Parrish, McHale, DJ, Ainge. They had every position filled. They had shooting. They had defense. They had everything you could ever want. And they're in the finals. They lost to one of the greatest teams in history. The 84-85 Lakers were also incredible. And you can't really fault the team for losing to Magic, Kareem, and Worthy, and Byron Scott, and all those guys. You could even say, like, by 84-85, is Boston maximizing every regular season win? Like, they went 63 and 19. This is already the middle of their run. Like, I don't think this team is hungry for regular season wins in the same way that an earlier success team might be. So who knows what they could have won if the regular season was like everything to them.
For sure. Yeah.
Look, they had already won in 81. They'd already won in 84. Yes. So they won the year before. They were going to win the next year, and the next year's team was going to be one of the best ever. like indisputably,
the 86
the
team.
86 Celtics team is a special team, one of the Pantheon teams. This team is not far behind. So I really wanted to get a mid-80s Celtics team in. This team has the pedigree. They were incredible statistically. The roster is Hall of Fame heavy and phenomenal. So it wasn't that big a leap for me to go with the 85 Celtics.
You made my life easy because I feel like it's poetic symmetry that I do this. I'm going to take the 85-86 Lakers.
Love it. Yeah, no, look, it's amazing because those two of the best teams ever that happen to have been at their peaks at the same time. That's what makes it so fun.
So the difference, obviously, is unlike the 84-85 Celtics, who lost to the Lakers in 6 games in the NBA Finals, the 85-86 Lakers did not make it to the NBA Finals because they came up against a team led by not Ralph Simpson. Never going to live it down. But Ralph Sampson, along with his buddy in the front court, Hakeem Olajuwon.
Ever heard of him?
When the NBA looked at those guys and just shrugged and like, do we have to figure out how to deal with this over the next 10 years? And the Lakers, after having a very good regular season, I'm going to look it up right now. I think they were third their net rating was plus 7.5, which was third after the 86 Celtics, one of the greatest teams of all time, and the Milwaukee Bucks plus 8.7. But, Laker team still went 62-20.
62-20, first in offense, seventh in defense.
Had Magic and I don't know if this was the last great Kareem season. He was first team All-NBA along with Magic Johnson. The thing that put this season over the top for me, and again, like they have the fact that they lost to the Rockets, not even a 7-game series. They lost in 5 games. They just didn't know what to do with that Rockets team. This was, I think, the beginning of Worthy being like, this is his 4th year in the league. It was his first All-Star season. And he got like MVP votes in this year, or an MVP vote. He got, and this is the other thing, people, we look at historical data and whatnot. I think it was in the mid 90s, right? When we started doing a third All-NBA team. So Kareem and Magic, first team All-NBA in 85-86. James Worthy didn't make an All-NBA team, but you could actually now look this up on Basketball Reference. He was 15th in the voting for All-NBA. So if there had been an All-NBA team in the 1985-86 season, James Worthy would have been on it, in all likelihood as a forward. So that, to me, to have essentially 3 All-NBA guys, that says a lot. And after you just made the 84-85 Celtics pick, this felt fitting.
Love it. They're 11th on my list.
Okay.
And the only reason they're 11th on my list is because I penalized them for a playoff flameout, which is what it was. I have a really interesting parallel to that team when a great team, but maybe where at least 1 or 2 of the great players are a little long in the tooth already or getting up in age. They're no longer the most athletic team.
Yeah. And
then an athletic team comes along with great talent and kind of sweeps them away. There's another team on this list, for sure should be on this list, that has a very similar, I think, idea.
And they might get picked, so don't say it.
The funny thing is Sampson and Hakeem did not have a ton of success after this. It's kind of crazy. Like if you were living, well, I was not living, John, you were living in 1986. You would have thought that Rockets team was going to win how many finals, right? And it's like, it just doesn't. Yep. Sometimes it doesn't work out that way.
I mean, I think there's one team of every era like that they were ended up being like a comet in the sky. There was those Rockets. It was a team that I'm going to say, because I don't think they're going to get picked, the mid 90s Magic for the 90s. And then, I don't know, maybe I should say them. Maybe I shouldn't say it. No, I don't think they're going to get picked either. The Thunder.
We'll see.
Oh, wow.
They're not, I don't think they're going to get picked, but they are on my list.
Okay.
But that's where the parallel comes into the team that I'm sure we'll discuss. Okay. Yes. Anyway, we'll get there. So my next pick, this is number 4 already. Jeez. Okay. Yeah. All right. Because I only want to take the fewest amount of actual franchises possible, I am going now with the 1972-73 Boston Celtics.
I thought you would leave them for me. Damn it. That was a miscalculation.
This is 68-14. So hello. That's a record. 8th in offense.
Tied for the 5th greatest record of all time.
Yeah, 8th in offense, 1st in defense. We're talking John Havlicek, Dave Cowens, JoJo White, a team that won the next year in 74 and then won again in 76.
We should say Dave Cowens, he won in MVP. Not only did he win MVP, he won MVP over in his prime Kareem.
Yeah. That's pretty nuts, by the way.
Yes, it was.
It's a great team, and the interesting look. It's kind of similar to what I said about KD earlier, and you don't want to say this about a Knicks championship team because, of course, in this season the Knicks won the championship, and in fact, the Knicks defeated the Boston Celtics in the Eastern Conference Finals. But John Havlicek got injured in Game 3, and he missed Game 4 and was never the same. After that, he played with a terrible shoulder and could barely lift it. And the Knicks won that series. And I think it's
in 7
fair games. In 7 games. I think it's very fair to say that the Celtics were the best team that year and probably win the championship had Havlicek not gotten injured. And, Willis Reed was already at the end of the line. Like that 73 team was great. And Clyde was in that series, by the way, the numbers that Clyde Frazier had, just outrageously good. Clyde was incredible. They had Earl.
I think he would have been able to punish Trae Young if given the chance.
Yeah, I think so too. I think most likely, I think Andrew apparently thinks it's like Elfrid Payton situation with Clyde on offense, but let me tell you something. That was...
I'm sorry.
Listen, man, you're about to make me turn into an independent voter or run third party.
Oh, wow.
Okay.
Oh, no.
He's taking the votes.
Yeah. I'll take
Taking
my
the votes
entire
with him.
super PAC with
What
me.
happened to Party Man?
Yeah.
Oh, man. Yeah. So yeah, one of the best teams in regular season history, probably win the finals without a catastrophic injury. It might be the best parallel to the Durant 2019 injury.
Sure.
Although it didn't, and it was in the conference finals too. The difference is the Warriors won the conference finals and the Celtics team did not. But it is a good parallel because I think probably heavy favorites to win that championship, and the Havlicek injury kind of did them in. So I now have 2 Warriors teams and 2 Celtics teams. On to you.
Okay. I had them. They were 4th on my list, and I didn't take them because I didn't think you were going to take them.
You should know me by now. I love the old things.
Yeah. Damn it. Okay. I'm gonna. I don't know if I'm famous last words. I'm gonna try this one more time and leave a team that I probably think is maybe a little bit better than the team I'm about to take because I don't think you're going to take them. We'll see if those are famous last words. I am going to take the 1967-68 Philadelphia 76ers.
Number 9 on my list. Great choice.
Okay. So this team went 62-20. They were led by how old was he in this season? Hold on.
Sir Wilton?
Sir Wilton. He was a little long on the tooth. He was 31 years old. But this is still Sixers Wilt.
Also, yeah, go.
So going. Here's what old Wilt did. Let's go. This is what old Wilt did. 24 points a game, 24 rebounds a game, 8.6 assists per game. This is the season that this man put up in 1967-68. He was flanked by not one, but 2, not just Hall of Famers, 2 of the top 75 players of all time.
I think 3 Hall of Famers.
So Hal Greer and Billy Cunningham.
I believe Chet Walker was also a Hall of Famer.
Yeah. Sorry. I apologize to any Chet Walker stands out there. Yes. So 4 Hall of Famers.
The Chet Walker and Tom Thacker stands out there.
No, but again, you're talking about guys in their prime. So like, again, Hal Greer, just an incredibly underrated player in NBA history. This guy made 7 All-NBA second teams, which is another way of saying he was a top 10 NBA player for the better part of a decade. He was still kind of on the tail end of his prime. Billy Cunningham is one of those guys that, like, you got to listen to people who were around then, like, talk about watching this guy. He was one of these guys that the stats and accolades, kind of like DeBusschere, I don't think they fully capture what he was. Anyway, this team was ridiculous. And
yes,
they went up against a Boston Celtics team in the Eastern Division Finals, which back then was the precursor to the NBA Finals. And they lost in 7 games. It is perhaps the defining series, rightly or wrongly, of Wilt Chamberlain's impeccable career. But yeah, I mean,
well, they got him the year before, right? 67. They beat Russell.
Yes, that was one of the ones that they won. I don't know. It feels like the right pick. They beat Russell Celtics 4-1 in the Eastern Division Finals the previous year, and then they beat the Warriors in the NBA Finals 4-2. So coming off a championship, I guess that's a bit of a theme of mine here. And they lost Game 7 by 4 points. So, yeah.
Great. I love it. This was, and Wilt kind of balanced out his game, obviously, with the 9 assists per game, and kind of the 40 points a game days might have been over, but he kind of changed his game a bit, and probably better balance for his team. And look, Wilt still had, 4 or 5 years of some great basketball left. So he's still in his prime, or maybe just post his prime.
And again, the Celtics team they lost to, I mean, we're talking prime Hondo plus
the rest
Bill Russell, and again, a little long in the tooth, but still Sam Jones, 34, still good enough to average 24 a game in those East Finals. So
and then win it again the next year. So they still had something left.
Yeah, they tended to do that a lot back then.
Oh man, that's a great pick. Okay, I have so many things I want to talk about, but I only get one more team to pick. All right, I'm going to go with a full house of Celtics and Warriors.
Can I guess which team you're going for?
Please. I think it might surprise you.
I'm wondering if you're going back to the 80s.
I'm not. I'm not going back to the 80s. I'm not going back to the 70s.
Oh, are you going KG?
I'm going KG.
Oh, wow. Give it to me. Here we go.
So this is kind of similar to my theme. 2008, 2009.
It has to be the one.
Boston Celtics. I actually am surprised. I kind of forgot how great their statistical accolades were. And this is with KG playing, I think, 50-something games. And even with that, they went 62-20. They were 6th on offense, 2nd on defense. I think there's no question they make the finals if KG's healthy. Zero question. Like that Dwight Howard Magic.
I was about to say,
fun.
we should say what happened in the
Yes, they
playoffs.
lost to the Magic, which was a really fun, really good team. Dwight Howard at his peak was phenomenal, underrated, criminally underrated at this point because of all the stuff that's happened after with Dwight Howard.
Yes.
Unbelievable player at that time. Dominant as anything. I don't think there's any question that the Celtics win that series with KG. I think the Celtics probably beat the Lakers that year, but okay, well, maybe. Well, I think it's fair to argue, but I think they do. So it's kind of like one of these teams where I just feel like it's a what if team. Now, KG, unlike the Durant and the Havlicek stories, got injured much earlier. But that look, I mean, we're talking, and Rondo at that time was so good.
I think
people
already, that's another, talk about a guy who, like Dwight, I think people are already,
they're like hung around too long and their primes were too short. And it's like, yeah. So, obviously Rondo, Pierce, Allen, KG. It's a phenomenal team. One of the best defensive teams over a period I've ever seen. Obviously the Tibbs-led defense, the way they changed the way defense is played and the way KG locked it all down. I just think, again, like there are rare teams that it's hard, like I downgraded a bunch of teams because of playoff losses that I felt like they shouldn't have had. And then there are the teams that I feel like you can't punish them for that. Like they didn't have KG, they weren't going to win, but the team itself was unbelievable. And that's why I went with the 08-09 Celtics. So I now have 70s, 80s, and 90s Celtics, along with two Golden State teams from 2010s. Pretty good.
I had completely forgotten until I just looked it up that the Celtics were up 3-2 in that series against Orlando.
With Glenn Davis starting at power forward.
I was about to say you're Jesus Christ. Game 7, which the Celtics lost by 19 points, but they were trotting out. Oh my! You probably know this because you've looked it up. You want to know who played 13 minutes in that game?
I didn't look it up. But is it Brian Scalabrine?
He is okay. One of two players to play 13 minutes in that game. You want to guess the other one? He went on to have a Hall of Fame career in the other side of the world.
Stephon Marbury.
Yes.
Oh my God, Stephon
Went
Marbury.
1 for 4, had 4 points, 1 assist, made both of his free throws. The bench that day for the Celtics consisted of Eddie House, Marbury, and Scalabrine, with Glenn Davis starting and playing 30 minutes for an injured.
Yeah, I mean the bench,
D-Day.
that Celtics bench was never good, and it's a fair knock on their team as compared to some of the other teams on here. But like Doc played those guys a ton, and like if Glenn Davis was a decent bench player at the time, Eddie House was a decent bench player at the time. James Posey was, I guess, only in the 08 team. He was gone after that.
Posey was not on that team. Tony Allen was. He only got garbage time minutes though.
Right. It was like kind of pre when he. Pretty amazing that they won 62 games and almost made the finals despite not having KG.
Do you remember who they made their backup point guard the next year?
Nate
Robinson,
Yeah.
another former Knick.
In fairness, though, I'm looking here now. I guess Jameer Nelson also got injured in that series because Rafer Alston started that game 7
Yes. I do remember that. Yep.
For the Magic. I like that pick. I thought about them. I did think about them. Okay. My last pick. So I'll just say the team that they were we were referencing before, which I'm not going to take. It's one of the greatest regular season teams of all time, the Spurs team that was up 2-0 against the Thunder and then just got ran off the floor. Remind me, what year was it again? It was
15-16.
Yes, 15-16.
I love this team. I love this close to my heart. Can we talk about it for a second? I know we're getting a little late because neither of us are going to pick them.
No, I'm not going to take them. So talk about them.
But like 67-15, fourth in offense, first in defense. They went 40-1 at home. The best
ninth best point differential of all time.
And it's just such a cool, that team was so cool because like the longevity of the Spurs, everyone's talked about that. Like Parker, Duncan, Ginobili still good, but no longer great. Kawhi ascends.
Fully actualized.
And it's like, now he's the best player by far.
Because it's like the year after they won the finals in 2014, like Kawhi didn't make the leap right away that next year. He needed the additional year.
Right.
And this is when he got there.
But the old guys were still good enough to make an amazing team and have that amazing infrastructure. And LaMarcus Aldridge was there. Like that's a crazy, crazy.
It's
like
insane.
The amount of talent on that team is nuts. And you have Pop as the coach and like just 15-16 is a fascinating year. You have four teams. Well, one of them won the finals, but like there are 4 teams there that could have won finals in many other years. Like the 4 top teams that year, if you include OKC, who beat the Spurs.
Yeah, I was about to. And then the
incredible top 4 teams. Maybe one of the best top 4s ever. But like just an amazing basketball team, and it's just like kind of the Lakers Rockets series in '86. Just one of these younger and more athletic, hungrier teams that came in and just wiped the floor with them. Yeah. And it's just interesting how sometimes it's a matchup. And like
it was
just really bad matchup for the old Spurs, where when Serge Ibaka, Durant, and Westbrook were just jumping out of the gym and dunking on you for 48 minutes. But an amazing basketball team.
I've never felt a series turn that much.
No, never. It was wild.
Yeah. Game 3. I remember game 3 specifically. That's not the team I'm taking. The team I'm taking is a team that played basketball the next year, and that is the Cleveland Cavaliers, 2016-17. So
hi, Zach Lowe.
Look,
he swears by this team, so I agree.
It's a great team.
But there's a reason why he swears by it, because you had the second greatest player, arguably of all time, in his prime, on a team that was very good. And I don't care that their regular season record was shit and that their point differential was shit. Those teams didn't care about that. They did not care in the slightest. If you want to know how good that team was, go look at their postseason performance up until they got to face what some people think maybe the greatest basketball team ever assembled, the KD Warriors. What did they do? They steamrolled the Pacers in round 1, 4-0. They steamrolled the Raptors in round 2, 4-0. And then they beat the Celtics 4-1 in the Eastern Conference Finals before moving on to face the Warriors. And
it should be noted the East stunk. That should be noted.
Yes, the East stunk. And I wonder how much of the fact that the East stunk was the fact that some of the other teams were like, LeBron's going to do his thing in Cleveland for a few years.
Well, he did do it every single year in 2010s. He made the finals. So,
Indeed, he did. Yeah. I'm just looking back at the Celtics, the Eastern Conference Finals against the Celtics. First 2 games, Cavs won by 13, and then they won game 2 of that series by 44 points.
Yep, I remember it. Yeah.
That's the game Isaiah Thomas got hurt.
Yeah, so I mean, that should be noted too. And then the Celtics won a game by 3, and then it was not a series after that at all.
Do either of you remember that game 3?
I don't.
It's either an overtime win or it's a buzzer beater by Avery Bradley that rattled in and out.
I do vaguely remember that.
The Cavs were up by like 20 and they blew it.
Yeah,
and then it was like, what happened? We were headed to a sweep, and then like never underestimate the heart of a Celtic was all over Twitter.
Yeah, that's nauseating.
Yes.
Wow. So one major note that comes out of this, and it's something I said at the beginning. I didn't think you'd agree with me, John. 0 90s teams drafted.
So let's finish there. It was funny. We were going to do this pod originally last night, and then schedules got crazy. I had on my NBA Jam shirt with like Ewing and Starks on it because I had notions like, I wonder if I'll take him towards the end. I couldn't bring myself.
They're just not in the same league. They're not. Those Knicks teams are not in the same league. But who
would be your first pick from a 90s
So my
draft?
8th ranked team and my 7th ranked team was the 16 Spurs, 15, 16 Spurs that we already talked about. My next one was the 96, 97 Jazz.
Oh,
okay. So I would personally have
the Suns over them.
That's think fine. The Suns have an argument. And I do think the 95, 96 Sonics have an argument.
So it's so funny. The 6-7 Jazz and the 5-6 Sonics have extremely similar statistical profiles, and both lost to MJ in 6.
And I know which of those 2 teams that I
think was better.
Yeah, and I think it was the Sonics team.
I hear it. So that one of my honorable mentions is the Sonics. They're down there on like 13, but they're splitting hairs. I mean, I think that Utah team was pretty phenomenal. I think the top end talent, like I know Kemp and Payton were great. I think Stockton and Malone were better, frankly, and certainly did it for longer. But that doesn't mean that season they were better necessarily. And then the 92-93 Suns were 62-20. I mean, the 96-97 Jazz were 64-18 and 38-3 at home, which is pretty remarkable.
Of all the team, and this is a little sacrilegious for me to say, but I'll say it. Like, if I'm ranking the teams that Jordan took, because Michael Jordan existed, these teams did not have a title. I think the Suns go ahead of the Knicks. For me, I think I put the Suns 1. I think I put the 92-93 Knicks ahead of the Jazz teams. But then again, they would have faced the Suns. So if I have the Suns number 1,
I don't think the Knicks were as good. I just don't. But it's close, but I don't. And then
the Charles Smith of it all.
Yeah, right. And then I guess we've already mentioned all my honorable mentions, other than I think this one's worth talking about. The 2012-13 OKC Thunder.
Oh, let's go.
Which was probably the best OKC team, even though Harden had left already. They were 60-22. They were first in offense, 4th in defense. They had the 10th highest net rating of all time, I think. I have to double check that, but that's what I wrote down.
Okay.
And look, we're talking about Prime Durant, Westbrook, Ibaka, Kevin Martin, Cephalosha is still really good back then as a complimentary player.
Oh yeah.
And Patrick Beverley crushed Westbrook's knee in the first round. Otherwise, that team has a really good shot. That was their best chance, probably even better chance than when they made the finals. Cause I don't think anybody expected that was early. That was a bit before schedule. That team was pretty special. And the OKC Thunder were that team of the 2010s where like, you would have sworn they would have won a championship. And they just
and yet they did not. No, we didn't give any love to the Rockets teams that tried to give a fight to the Warriors.
I mentioned them a bit.
Ago. Yeah. I don't think they're deserving, quite frankly, to be in this conversation. I don't think so.
2018?
It's interesting with them. I feel like I almost penalize them. They literally built an entire team and played an entire way to beat one team. And like they literally planned the entire year to beat Golden State the way they played, the personnel that they got, and it worked. And they gave Golden State fits. But like when I look at the actual team, like the roster, it doesn't, and the statistical profile isn't quite there with that team.
65 wins and then up 3-2, and then Chris Paul gets hurt. Doesn't that go to your argument, Benji, for like an injury away?
They won 65 games.
They were like
so 2017, 18. In terms of here are the top teams of all time, wins total wise that did not win.
So was the net rating not as good? Because I somehow didn't really come across them when I was doing the research.
D'Antoni, so their net rating is not going to be
their net rating or their point differential was 8.5. So top wins that didn't win a championship: 73 win Warriors were taken, 68 win Celtics, and 73 taken. 67 win Dallas Mavericks in 2006-07 lost to the We Believe
Warriors. Yeah.
And then
that is way too big a punishment. You do not get on this list. In the first round.
They were not getting taken. Tied that 67 wins, tied with the Spurs 15-16, who we spoke about. After that 66 win Cavs team in 08-09.
I thought about them. I thought about them, but the East was so bad.
And they just were not a great team.
And look, but that said, is it just like LeBron is maybe the second best player of all time, might be the best player of all time, and like was maybe at his peak? They hit a lot of peaks. He was at his athletic peak.
And they made a
but no, I don't think
they made a point to win the regular season. And
I don't think they're on this list. I don't think
they are either, but I'm getting to it now. The next team after that is the 65 win 2017-18 Rockets.
I hear the argument, Andrew. I totally forgot that they won 65 games. It's not unfair.
The trend you were on of Kevin Durant gets hurt. That's the only reason the Warriors lost to the Raptors. Like Steph getting hurt.
But I don't believe that the Rockets win that series.
They're up after watching Game 3 and 4.
Your boy Harden, Andrew.
What's up?
Your boy Harden.
I'm perfectly fine with him not getting drafted. But the case of if Chris Paul is there, like they lost because they had a bum leading them the last 2 games to try and clinch it. But Chris Paul he pulls his hamstring in the final minutes on an inadvertent whistle in
100%. It was.
They have 2 wins.
I personally don't think they win the series, but it was trending that way. I can't argue with that. I just think ultimately the Warriors win that series, but I think it's very fair.
I remember because that was the Celtics with Tatum and Brown and no Kyrie, no Hayward.
Correct.
Trying to pull off, Simmons used to call it the Celtics version of the 01 Patriots, that they were going to be like a team of destiny. That
is the most Simmons thing I ever heard.
It is the most Boston Simmons thing. But it was like this team is way too early to be making a finals. And they might be the team that eliminates LeBron from the East forever. Didn't happen. But there was a 4-day stretch when we thought there was no more parity in the NBA, when the Rockets were up 3-2 and the Celtics were up 3-2. And it's like, could the Cleveland Golden State Invitational finally end? And for 4 days, there was curiosity, and the NBA ratings reflected that.
Oh, okay.
It didn't happen. The Warriors won 2, the Cavs won 2.
I'm glad we spoke about it. This was fun. I got to run because I got to do my 3rd pod tonight.
Man. You're a champ. Yeah.
Listen,
Liberty Ballers.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right. Tell them what's up.
I will.
Tell them they're not going anywhere.
Can we have 15 seconds just to mention one honorable mention I thought of?
Sure. Yeah.
No love for the 2010-11 Heat.
No.
No, because of how it flamed out?
Absolutely not. If I give more love to the 13-14 heat. If
I agree with that. I think they were so clearly figuring stuff out the whole year. Like the fact that they made the finals was kind of a miracle. I think it reflected kind of the end of the Celtics run. Like it was a weird spot. Again, the East was not really good in this era. And I feel like the Mavs series exposed what was a very strange season in general from that team. And I just didn't think they were that. I really didn't think they were that good. Like they needed a year to kind of figure it out. Not that the team didn't cross my mind, because I was thinking again, along the lines of teams that should have won the finals that didn't. The Heat qualify.
I mean,
but
if anything, the team from that little mini era, the 2012-13 Spurs probably should get more love.
Yeah, probably.
I mean, they
Free
were
throw away.
Yeah, well, a rebound array, a miss.
I go free throw. Kawhi makes a free throw. They're up 4 with 5 seconds left.
That's fine.
All right. Thanks, guys.
This was fun. This was great. Ben, you're the man. Andrew, thank you for hanging out for this one.
Andrew,
would have been the same without you.
Of course.
And
thank you, Benji, as always. More of Benji on Patreon to come, by the way.
Who else would preach for James Harden if not for you?
Yes, me. The ultimate James Harden defendee. Vote for Benji on the poll. It's up for 2 days. Okay, I've come back around. I'm endorsing you in the polls.
If you care about defense, vote for me.
Yes.
Stop it. Okay, I'm sorry. We don't have any more time today. And most of all, thank you, our listeners and our patrons. We appreciate you so much. Hope you enjoyed this episode. Yes, more fun with Benji coming up. As we go by. But until then, enjoy the rest of your week. Talk to you soon. Peace out.